So today I kind of wanted to go over just the PolyPaint basics inside of ZBrush. We've talked about materials ad nauseum. I'm pretty sure you guys are tired of the PowerPoints at this point, so I felt like we needed to kind of jump back into ZBrush so that you guys can get an understanding of the basics of PolyPaint, where things are. It's and then next class I might go into maybe some more techniques to go more technically into it, when it comes to like skin, different pores and things like that. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a basic overview. So let us dive right into ZBrush. Okay. Let me see. I need to change my the source for this. Okay, so we are now in ZBrush, and to do this, I'm using the Wacom tablet once again, just to give me some more flexibility. You can do this exercise with a mouse as well, but you're just not getting as much precision, and you're not getting as much finesse. And as you guys can see, my symmetry is on. All right. So when you're gonna poly paint, there's a few things that I want you guys to keep in mind. There's also a few basics that you guys need to understand. And for the assignment for today, you guys are going to have to go into your Lightbox, go into your project, load the demo head. You can do the female, male, you can do any of these, really, like these base kind of meshes, and this exercise will work there. I just want you guys to get familiar with it. I've seen that some of you guys do PolyPaint, so some of you guys are familiar with it, but for this assignment for beginners, right, for people who are just brand new to ZBrush and painting and things like that, this is a good base for you guys. All right. So when it comes to poly painting, you have to remember that, like a lot of the things we've talked about in this class, it's resolution dependent. And when I say resolution dependent, I'm not talking about the resolution of your monitor, even though that can play into some of it, but not to the extent that what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the resolution of your mesh. All right. So right now we've got about 69,000 points in our model. So what I want to do is I'm gonna divide it a couple more times, because what's gonna happen is if I start painting on this, if my resolution of my model is low, I'm gonna be painting in low resolution. All right. So here is the first thing that I usually do is I make sure that, my model is done. I go in and I've upped my resolution. So if you're using Dynamesh, right, you can Dynamesh your character, maybe increase that resolution. It's going to freeze that. So let's Dynamesh, boom. Maybe let's go up again. I'm going to remove the Dynameshes on this guy, but just make sure you've got good resolution. That's the main point of this, right? So if I, if I start to pull, you can see there's no faceting going on in my model. All right. So I've made sure that my resolution is quite high on this model. I've got two subtools here, right, for this demo head. So right now I've got the demo head itself selected. All right. So if I want to start painting on my model, what you're going to notice first is you're going to want to probably get into maybe the skin shade, right? And what you're going to want to do is, because what you're going to notice is if you move this color marker, right? If you move this color marker to wherever it goes, it's going to change the color of it. And I don't want it to do that when I'm trying to paint. So I'm going to go into my color palette up here, right? And I'm gonna fill the object, right? I'm gonna fill this model with this. So now whenever I do that, right, you notice that that is no longer happening, right? Because I have filled the object with this skin shade white, this white color, all right? I haven't filled in it with the material, but I have filled it in with that white color. So now I've got myself a decent base to start painting. And you can see now that my paint is, my paintbrush is activated here, right? And if you don't see that paintbrush activated, make sure that it's activated. All right, so now it's saying that I can paint. All right, so now if I go over here, if I select this red color and I start to paint, let's see, let's go, it's gonna do MRGB, right? And you'll see, you'll notice, right, because if I have material MRGB, it's going to paint the material and color. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select RGB. But what you're also going to notice is as I'm doing RGB as well, it's also pushing and pulling that mesh. Well, that's because I still have my Z add on, right? This Z add refers to the push and pull of the geometry, right? Z sub means it's going in. You guys know this. Z add means it's pulling out. So what I want to do is I want to turn that off as well. So now all I'm painting is color information. All right. All I'm painting now is color information. All right. So now that that's all I'm doing, I'm good to go. G2Gs. All right. So if I want to, right, I'm just gonna, I can start to paint this guy with a red color. I've got my symmetry on. All right. Maybe I go and I select a different color. Maybe let me go to a green, right? I can now start painting this green on there. All right. So this is going swimmingly, obviously. You know, maybe he's some sort of vigilante superhero and this is his mask or whatever that I'm painting. All right. And another thing that you guys could keep in mind is whenever you want the same way that you smooth your model, if you hold down shift, it will smooth out this paint. But you have to be careful because when you're smoothing, right, you're not, if you hold down shift on your keyboard, you're not just smoothing in RGB. You're also smoothing the alpha. You're also smoothing the geometry as well because your Z add is on by default. So what you want to do is turn that off while you have on shift so that all you're smoothing is the transition between the colors. All right. So these are some of the basics that you guys can follow to start getting your textures painted. So let's go back in time a little bit. All right. All right. Another thing that you got to keep in mind is whenever you're painting, right? If I go ahead and change out my material, right? If I go ahead and change my material changes. I still have that white selected, but now I'm painting and I've got this glow on. You can, right? You can fill your material in. You can fill your material in and paint on the material, but I don't want to do that. What I like to use is either this skin shade or this matte cap gray. And if you hit X on your keyboard, you can alternate between switch the color. Now I'm painting with this black. All right. So you can switch Switch, 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 switch. That's how you switch between this. It's like Photoshop a little bit in that sense. All right. So maybe let's give this guy, let's give him maybe a normalish skin tone. Switch the color. All right. All right, let's give our guy a normal skin tone. Kind of like that. If I hit X on my keyboard, remember, I can then use the symmetry mode, right, to paint. Painting our character. Then let's switch the color. Maybe use like a darker color for the hair. Whoops. Switch this color. And you see that line? That's because that's lazy mouse. If I hit L on the keyboard, lazy mouse turns off. Let me go big. All right, so let's just paint. Paint. All right. Paint. Remember, shift. I can smooth that transition out, right? Shift, smooth that transition out. All right. Smooth. All right. So another cool feature about ZBrush is, well, if I want to, I can paint with alphas. So sometimes whenever I'm painting, I like to come in here and maybe get some of these alphas to use to paint. Let's switch color once again. All right, instead of dot, we can do a spray. All right, let me reduce this size so you guys can see. So now I'm spraying my color on here. Spraying it on. All right. So you can use different kind of alphas. Switch color. You can see how that spray works. You can come in, smooth it out a little bit. Right, so you can start to really build up different layers and things like that. Let's go to, so that's a color spray. Let's just go to the regular spray. All right. And then I can shift, smooth it out. All right. And what this does is kind of gives you like a variation, so everything isn't like super uniform. I've also got on that alpha. I can turn off that alpha as well and start to get those. So like with painting people, skin, and different things like that, you will start to notice that, you know, and another thing I want you guys to keep in mind is you can reduce your RGB intensity, right, with this slider up here. So now I can start to kind of get in there if I want to do some subtle, right, subtle painting. Right now, you know, if I have it at 100, it's going to be laying that paint on super thick, right? But what I want to do instead is, you know, kind of give myself a little bit of wiggle room, all right? So maybe in some of these crevices, right, it might be a little darker, right? These little areas, right? And painting, with painting like everything else I tell you guys, right? Gather you some reference. Get some reference on what you're trying to paint. Get some reference on skin. Get some reference on how skin is painted, how it looks, like real life references, right? Maybe want to put some blush on the cheeks, you know, right? I'm not looking at any reference right now, so this is probably not the best way to paint, right? I'm telling you that this is not the best way to paint, but I just want to show you guys, you know, some of the techniques that you can use to start to build up some of these paintings that you're, you know, painting some of these pieces. All right. All right. All right, and as you guys can see, you know, you want a complex, kind of complex layer of stuff going on. All right, let me actually use a little bit of reference to face. All right. So I just typed in face on Google, and it pulled up a bunch of faces. Right? So that's literally all I did. I just pulled up a bunch of faces, and I'm going to use this to kind of help me as I go. This guy looks a little sus, not gonna lie. But and the cool thing is, right, if you still want to use a little modeling, you know, you can paint with that, but I'm gonna just stick with just painting with just color and not using Z add or Z sub. So, you know, a general rule is, remember, whenever you see a crevice, right, that crevice is going to be it's going to be a little darker, right? It's in shadow most of the time, right? So you're going to want to emphasize those by painting where the shadows are, where the light is. All right, let's cover this guy up. All right. All right. All right, and then shift, smooth, right? Shift to smooth it out. All right, naturally, right? Depending on how lighting is working, right? We're gonna have some parts of it that's gonna be lighter than the other. So I might go in, right? Maybe go a little lighter, right? For some of these parts. So like the bridge of the nose might be a little lighter. It's gonna be maybe a hot spot right here, right? Maybe a little bit on the cheeks, right? Right, and it's all about subtlety, you know. That's the beauty of a lot of this. I'm gonna switch this. I'm gonna maybe give the lips a little bit of blush right here, right? Switch back. All right. right? So it's, you know, it's a dance that you're gonna have to do. It's a balancing act. You're going back and forth. You know, you really want to look at the areas that need emphasis and emphasize those. You know, maybe, you know, even, you know, there might be even some even darker areas, right? In maybe some of these pits. Shift smooth. When I say pits, I mean like the deepest crevices, right? That are really in shadow, hard to see, right? I would imagine that, you know, maybe this guy, he has like a 5 o'clock shadow or something. You know, I can start to maybe put that in. All right. You know, he needs to shave. Right. So these are like the little things that you can do to start bringing your characters to life, and then, you know, smooth it out. All right. And our character is super smooth. When I mean that is, he doesn't have a lot of micro. You know, we talked about micro surface detail, right? He doesn't have a lot of those, right? So to introduce some of those things, right, I would need to leave my RGB space, and I would go to Z add. I would turn off my my RGB, and I would turn on my alpha, and I might go in here. Let's find something that will give us some maybe do something like this. Instead of dots, I'll do drag select so you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right, so when I drag it, I'm getting some more interesting details going on there. But let's do, can I get something? Yeah, something like that. All right, let's see if I can maybe paint that. All right, so like I want to give him like that, you know, that very little stubble that you're gonna get, and I'm gonna reduce the intensity, right? Right, and it's really bubbly. You know, you guys will get the point. But whenever you're doing this for real, you're gonna want to maybe get like a pack or something, or create your own alphas that can do this, and I can show you guys how to do that next class. How to create your own alphas like this that you can bring in and use for things like this. Like I have a bunch somewhere, but you know, I'm just gonna use the ones that come in here. So, you know, just you guys see the idea of like, okay, he's got a little bit of ruggedness going there, you know, a little bit of roughness to match that. And this will then be translated into the normal maps. Maybe Alt. There you go. I hit Alt, right? And now I'm let me unlock my camera, right? And I'm giving him just a little bit of that, you know, the skin pore information. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, right? But I'm adding this kind of micro noise to it, right? And different parts of the body have different sizes, different orientation. Like the pores are different on the forehead, on the cheek, on the chin, right? Like you might have bigger pores here because you're gonna have thicker, coarser hair that grows on a beard, you know? So these are the kind of things that you want to think about whenever you're sculpting. So let's go, maybe I'll do clay buildup. Actually, let's do BST again. And instead I'll do dots. I'll do my regular alpha, and then I'm gonna go to my RGB. All right, let's go maybe not all the way black, but almost black. Remove my Z add because I don't want to add anything anymore. All right, let's give our boy some eyebrows. All right, I'm gonna follow the ridge of the brow. My intensity is pretty low. Maybe I can turn this back up. All right, turn this back up a little bit. You know, so now we've got eyebrows. It looks super funky, but that's fine. All right. Call this guy Balthazar. You know, everything's super black. Then maybe go a little gray. You know. Right. This is a good opportunity to use maybe Z add a little bit, right? Because then if I want to, you know, as I'm making those changes, as I'm drawing these, right, I'm also getting that height information out of it as well. All right. So if I increase my Z intensity, right, then I can start to really get, as you guys can see, right, something that shift, smooth it out. It looks super funky, but you guys get the point, right? You're going through. It's gross. Ooh, that would be a good one for like pores somewhere else on the face. All right. But let's go back here. I maybe want a finer point. All right. Let's do L for my lazy mouse. Smooth it out. And it's going to usually follow this ridge. All right, you guys can see as I'm adding, you know, I'm adding this, you're adding those little, what looks like micro hairs. All right. So there's a lot of different little techniques. There's a lot of little things that you can do to really start bringing your characters to life. I'm going to remove my Z add here. Just go back to color. You can blend. Blend, 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 blend. Right. Maybe you get some highlights here. Just go a little higher. Just a little more red. Shift to smooth. Reduce the intensity, right? So now it's acting kind of more like blush. Switch the color again. Switch color. And the hotkey is V to switch. So now I'm just kind of going back and forth. Right? Going back and forth from my brush. Emphasizing the parts that need to be emphasized and de-emphasizing the parts that don't. Right. There we go. All right, so maybe the forehead will have some worry lines. Emphasize it with a shadow. If you want to do Z add, oops. Let me go here. Shift V. Let's reduce my intensity a little bit. All right, so you know, with a lot of this, you're just going back and forth, just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Right, and these usually are never this pronounced. I'm just kind of showing you guys what. Let's go Z add here, and then now whenever I go back to smooth, I can smooth it out. Still got a little bit of that information going there. All right, so you guys can see like how this can be really powerful when, you know, when you're working on your sculpts. All right, you can paint with sculpting or not. I don't recommend it if you finished your model. If you're like, I'm done with this, and you know, then you're just kind of going. You might be going overkill. But sometimes it's warranted, right? V. Reduce my intensity even more. My intensity up a little bit.
Is there a way to like save a palette or work with a palette of colors? That way, if you don't have to like guess what color you're using.
Yeah, it's. Let's see if I can open my. There is no palette inside of ZBrush, but there is. Let me see. Okay, so if I'm here, I can color drop, like I can use an eyedropper to pick the color I was using, right? To then, so if I sit C, it gives me a color picker and I can pick the color I was just using, right? if is you know, I don't think you can save like a color palette. This is you can I think you can expand this guy a little bit to add a couple more colors, but to for you know to get that same color that you were just using, you just boop see the color palette and then grab that and then use that. Does that help? V.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go C right there. And I can paint with that again. All right, and the thing about our skin is like we have all these layers, and then there's all these pores and different things that kind of affect the way we look. All right, so you know you kind of want to build up those layers, and that's what's going to start giving your sculpts a lot more fidelity, make them look real. Let's go see there, and then I can okay. So you can also use this system palette here to kind of add colors. So you can add a custom color, right, to your color palette, right, and then use that as well. All right, with hair, you're gonna have a little bit of sheen to it. Let's do something up here. And, all right. Let's give this dude a whack ass hairline. Right, you guys can see, you know, it's just you're going back and forth, you're blending. All right, let's blend this back together. Blend, 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 blend. Maybe take off Z add whenever I blend, so it's not smoothing out my info. All right, let's go C there. What I can then do, reduce my RGB intensity. All right, maybe let's increase it a little bit. All right, I usually work, you know, pretty quick. So, you know, just kind of I go through blending. And this is if you're not using like strand hair and then you're actually sculpting your hair in, you know. So all right, so for the eyes, we can go and do the same things that we did, or the other, you know, the other subtool. All right, so we can go into the subtool, go into our shader here, all right, and then we're going to go into our color. We're going to fill the object. Now that our object is filled, we can see, grab this. If he's got brown eyes or blue eyes, whatever eyes you want to give him. Oops, let's hit X on the keyboard to get something going. And then I usually like this, maybe C again. And if you increase the intensity, you can get the fleck of the eye. Let's see, V to switch. Oops. All right, so you're getting something like that. And then if you want to even go a little further, maybe, you know, this guy's super stressed. So now we can go in and maybe add a little bit of corner of the eyes. So, you know, this is pretty much what I want you guys to go try out on your own, is take either the, you know, obviously take a little more time than I did. You know, I'm kind of rushing through it to kind of show you guys and explain it to you guys. But I want you guys to, you know, take it, find yourself some good reference, and go and try to poly paint either the demo head for the male or demo head for the female. So in the chats, post your results, and we will go from there. Does anybody have any questions about the assignment? All right. So if you guys don't have any questions, you guys are free to go. I wanted to make, you know, my last classes have been like an hour plus long. I wanted to give you guys more of a show and tell, kind of go through it and you do it yourself kind of day. So yeah. And oh, let me show you guys, you know, if you guys wanted to also give him like a scar or something, you know, you could do that with an alpha. All right. So you can go Z add, Z sub, remove your RGB, and I can do drag select, and then maybe go here. And if I, oops, I don't want it on both sides of his face, so I'm gonna hit X, remove my symmetry, and then if I hit Alt, I can give my guy kind of like a, you know, battle scar. You know, look like he's a war torn. He's been through stuff. He got scratched up by a bear once. You know, he fought a bear and he won. You should see the bear. You know, it's the backstory. You know, I just wanted to, you know, show you guys that you can really start to take these really, really far. Does anybody have any questions for me? Comments, concerns? If you guys don't, whoops, I'm still on drag select. Let's go back here. We're gonna go dot, no, not drag dot, just dots, and then our alpha, and now we can go back in and, you know, I can paint some of this stuff in, shift smooth. All right, and you guys can see it's just really, it's just going, you're going back and forth. You're going back and forth with, you know, your character, your model. Here, you know, I'm going super quick, obviously, just because I promised you guys to be out of here pretty soon, so. Smooth it out, smooth, 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 smooth. Maybe go another shade, right? What you're gonna realize is all of this stuff is just, you're just layering on top of one another. You're just layering, you're just kind of building up. Instead of dot, let's do freehand. So, and shift to smooth, shift to smooth, shift to smooth, shift to smooth, shift to smooth. C, grab, oops, and V. Right, so now I can go back over, and then my intensity is super high. All right, let's reduce that intensity a little more. All right, reduce that intensity. Right, so you're going back and forth. You're layering. You're going back and forth with your canvas, your paint tools. You're going back and forth with the model itself. Right, you're giving yourself every opportunity to layer and build on top of what you got going. All right, so that is it for today. We've got our bear fighter here. You can do whatever you want with your character, but do, you know, attempt to give him, you know, do what you need, do what you want to do. Let's see, maybe turn him into an alien. You know, as long as the skin looks good, I don't care. Just attempt some of these PolyPaint techniques that I'm showing you. You're not going to be perfect the first time. I'm not perfect the 150,000th time I'm doing it, but you know, that's the nature of the beast. So go out there, practice your tools, practice. If you have a Wacom, use a Wacom. It's gonna make you feel more like you're painting it and not like you're just doing whatever. All right, you guys are free to go. I will see you tomorrow. All right, have a good rest of your day.